I never thought I'd see the day when war would follow me home. My name is Daniel Cooper, and I spent 8 years as a Marine infantry officer with 3 tours in Afghanistan under my belt. When I finally hung up my uniform in 2019, I thought I'd left that world behind forever. I bought a small house in Asheville, North Carolina, surrounded by the Blue Ridge Mountains, where the air was clean and the only explosions were the colors of autumn leaves. I started working as a carpenter, building decks and renovating homes. The physical work helped quiet my mind, and the mountain town's peaceful rhythm slowly replaced the chaos I'd known overseas. It was a Thursday evening in late October when everything changed. The temperature had dropped that week, and I could see my breath as I walked up my gravel driveway after a long day framing a new addition for a client across town. My hands were sore, my back ached, but there was satisfaction in honest work. The porch light cast a warm glow over my small front yard, and I could smell wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney mixing with the crisp mountain air. I was reaching for my keys when I noticed him. A man stood at the edge of my property, barely visible in the gathering darkness. He was tall, lean, wearing a worn jacket that had seen better days. Something about the way he held himself made my combat instincts kick in immediately. There was a stillness to him, a watchfulness that civilians don't possess. "Can I help you?" I called out, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline beginning to course through my veins. He stepped forward into the light and my blood ran cold. I knew that face, not the name, not at first, but I knew those eyes. Dark, intense, surrounded by weathered skin that spoke of years in harsh climates. I'd seen him through my rifle scope 6 years ago, across a valley in Helmand Province. "Captain Cooper," he said, his English heavily accented. "My name is Rahim Ahmadi. We have met before, though not formally." My hand instinctively moved toward where I used to carry my sidearm, but of course it wasn't there. I forced myself to breathe, to think. "I think you have the wrong house." "No," he said simply. "I have the right house. I have been looking for you for a long time." The memories came flooding back. That day in 2013, our patrol had been ambushed near a small village. We'd taken fire from a compound on the hillside, and I'd been tasked with coordinating our response. Through my scope, I'd seen a man directing the attack, calling out positions to his fighters. That man, this man. We'd called in an airstrike that leveled half the compound. I'd watched through binoculars as the smoke cleared, never knowing if he'd survived. "How did you find me?" My voice came out rougher than I intended. "It does not matter how," Rahim replied. "What matters is that I am here, and I am not here for revenge, Captain. I am here because I need your help." I laughed bitterly. "You need my help? You've got some nerve coming to my home." "I understand your anger," he said, raising his hands slowly in a gesture of peace. "But please, hear me. My daughter is in danger. She is somewhere in this country, and the people who have her will kill her. You are the only person who can help me find her before it is too late." The absurdity of the situation hit me. My enemy, a man I'd tried to kill, was standing in my front yard, asking for help finding his daughter. Every instinct told me to call the police to send him away, but something in his voice, a father's desperation that transcended nationality and conflict, made me hesitate. "Come inside," I heard myself say, "but keep your hands where I can see them." My living room was modest, furnished with pieces I'd built myself and a few items from the local thrift store. Rahim sat stiffly on my couch while I remained standing, keeping the coffee table between us. The overhead light seemed too bright, making this surreal conversation feel even more uncomfortable. "Start talking," I said, "and it better be the truth." Rahim's shoulders sagged slightly as he began. "After the compound was destroyed, I was pulled from the rubble by my men. I lost my wife that day, Captain. She was inside when your missile struck. I lost many friends, many brothers. I felt my jaw tighten, but I said nothing. War had no clean sides, no simple stories. I fought for 2 more years," he continued. "But then I had a dream. My wife came to me and told me that our daughter, Layla, needed a different life. She was 13 then, and I could see the war hardening her, stealing her childhood. She stopped playing, stopped smiling. She learned to distinguish between different weapons by their sound. No child should have such knowledge. So I made arrangements. It took 3 years of saving, bribing, and planning, but I got Layla out. I sent her to America with a family who promised to care for her, to give her education, a future." "When was this?" I asked. 2 years ago. She lived with a family in Richmond, Virginia. She was doing well in school, learning English. She would send me messages through secure channels, telling me about snow, about her classes, about American music. A ghost of a smile crossed his face. For the first time since her mother died, I heard happiness in her words. His voice wavered. Then, 6 weeks ago, the messages stopped. Complete silence. I moved to the window, looking out at the dark street. So call the police, call the FBI. Why come to me? Because the people who have her are connected to our war, Captain. The family she stayed with were working with arms dealers, men who supplied both sides of the conflict for profit. When Layla discovered what they were doing, they could not let her go. They moved her somewhere, and I do not know where. I turned back to face him. This is insane. I'm a carpenter now. I'm not in the military anymore. But you were Special Operations Liaison, Rahim said, standing slowly. I learned much about you, Captain Cooper. You coordinated with intelligence agencies. You have contacts, resources, and you speak Pashto. You understand our world. He pulled a worn photograph from his pocket and placed it on the coffee table. A young girl, maybe 17 now, with dark eyes that held both her father's intensity and something gentler. She was smiling in front of a Virginia monument, wearing a winter coat, looking like any American teenager. I have failed her once by sending her away, Rahim said quietly. I cannot fail her again. In 5 days, these men will move her out of the country. I have intercepted their communications. After that, she disappears forever, or worse. You are a father's last hope, Captain. I am asking you not as an enemy, but as one father to another. Though I know you have no children, I am asking you as one human being to another. I stared at the photograph for a long moment. The rational part of my brain screamed that this was a trap, a manipulation. But my gut, honed by years of reading people in life or death situations, told me Rahim was telling the truth. The desperation in his voice was real. Even if I wanted to help, I said slowly. What makes you think I can do anything in 5 days? Because I know you do not leave people behind, Rahim replied. I studied your service record. In 2012, you went back into enemy territory alone to recover a wounded translator. In 2014, you delayed your own evacuation to ensure local allies made it out safely. You are a man who understands duty beyond orders. He was right about one thing. I did understand duty. And looking at that photograph, I saw not an Afghan girl, but someone's daughter, someone's hope for the future. I need to make some calls, I finally said. You'll stay here tonight where I can keep an eye on you. Tomorrow we figure out if there's any truth to what you're saying. Relief flooded Rahim's face. Thank you, Captain. Don't thank me yet, I warned. And it's just Daniel now. I didn't sleep much that night. While Rahim rested on my couch, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, reaching out to old contacts I hadn't spoken to in years. My former intelligence liaison, Marcus Webb, now worked as a contractor for a private security firm in McLean. I sent him an encrypted message with the basics, asking if he could verify anything about arms dealers operating in the Richmond area. By morning, I had a response. Marcus confirmed that there was indeed an active investigation into a network of weapons traffickers using refugee assistance as a cover. One family in Richmond was under surveillance, but they'd gone dark 3 weeks ago. The FBI suspected they'd moved their operation, but had no leads on where. I showed the information to Rahim over coffee as pale morning light filtered through my kitchen window. Your story checks out, at least partially, but this is FBI territory now. We should hand this over to them. No, Rahim said firmly. These people have connections inside law enforcement. That is how they have operated for so long. The moment official agencies get involved, Layla will be moved or killed. I have a contact, someone on the inside of their organization. He has given me an address in Charlotte, where they are holding her temporarily. Charlotte's only 2 hours from here, I said, thinking out loud, but walking into a situation like this blind is suicide. I have walked into death many times, Captain. I am willing to do so again for my daughter. I looked at this man who had once been my enemy, who had lost his wife to my actions, who had crossed oceans and borders to save his child. War had put us on opposite sides, but fatherhood, duty, and desperation had brought us together. We'll need equipment, I said, and we need reconnaissance first. I have a friend in Charlotte, another Marine. He can do surveillance today. Tell us what we're dealing with. Over the next 18 hours, I assembled resources I thought I'd never need again. My old battle buddy, James Rodriguez, drove up from Charlotte with equipment he shouldn't have had access to. Marcus sent encrypted files with details on the trafficking network's known associates. I contacted a former translator, who now lived in Tennessee, and he confirmed that the communications Raheem had intercepted were genuine. By Saturday evening, we had a plan. The house in Charlotte was in a quiet suburban neighborhood, deliberately chosen to avoid suspicion. James's surveillance showed 2 guards rotating shifts, 1 vehicle in the driveway, and thermal imaging suggested 4 people inside, 1 in an upstairs bedroom who appeared to be restrained. "We go in tomorrow night," I told Raheem and James as we reviewed the plan in my workshop. "Fast and quiet, our goal is extraction only. We get Layla and leave. No heroics, no confrontations unless absolutely necessary." "I will do whatever is required," Raheem said. "You'll do exactly what I tell you," I corrected him, "because if this goes wrong, we all end up in prison or worse. I'm trusting you with my life, my friend's life. Don't make me regret it." James had brought tactical gear, communication equipment, and tools for breach entry. Looking at it all spread across my workbench, I felt the old familiar feeling returning, the heightened awareness, the focus. I'd thought I'd left this life behind, but maybe some parts of who we are never truly leave us. That night I called my sister in Tennessee, just to hear her voice. I told her I loved her, that if anything happened to me, my house and savings went to her kids' college funds. She asked if I was okay, and I lied and said I was fine. Some burdens you carry alone. Sunday night came too quickly. The drive to Charlotte was tense and quiet. James drove his unmarked van while Raheem and I sat in the back checking equipment. The October air had turned cold, and a light rain began to fall as we entered the city limits. The weather was actually helpful, giving us cover and keeping people indoors. We parked 3 blocks from the target house at 11:47 p.m. James would provide overwatch and communications from the van. Raheem and I would make entry. I'd given him a simple task: follow my lead, stay quiet, and be ready to comfort his daughter when we found her. Moving through the dark suburban streets felt surreal. Somewhere families were sleeping safely, unaware that a small war was about to unfold in their neighborhood. We approached from the rear, using fences and shadows for concealment. My heart pounded, but my hands were steady. The back door was our entry point. James had confirmed the security system was older, something I could bypass. It took 3 minutes, each second feeling like an hour. Then we were inside, moving through a laundry room into a kitchen that smelled of takeout food and cigarettes. The first guard was in the living room, watching television with his back to us. I moved fast, using a chokehold technique that put him unconscious in seconds. Raheem helped me secure him with zip ties before we moved to the stairs. The second guard was harder. He was coming down as we were going up. We collided on the landing, and he went for his weapon. Training took over. I deflected his draw, drove an elbow into his throat, and followed up with strikes that dropped him. It wasn't quiet. I heard movement upstairs, shouts in accented English. "Go," I told Raheem. "Second door on the right." He ran as I secured the second guard. Then I heard the most beautiful sound, a girl's voice crying "Baba," and Raheem's response in Pashto, telling her she was safe. But we weren't out yet. A third man appeared at the end of the hallway, and this one had a gun already drawn. Time slowed. I pushed through the doorway into the bedroom as shots cracked behind me, wood splintering from the doorframe. Raheem had Layla behind him, shielding her with his body. I returned fire, carefully aimed shots that drove the gunman back. "Window!" I shouted. "Out the window!" James had positioned a ladder there as planned. Raheem got Layla out first, then followed. I provided cover, firing twice more to keep the shooter pinned, then went out after them. We were climbing down as I heard sirens in the distance. Someone had called the police. The run back to the van was a blur. Layla was crying, Raheem was carrying her, and I was covering our retreat. We made it to the van with maybe 2 minutes to spare. James drove calmly, carefully, taking side streets away from the approaching police cars. "Everyone okay?" James asked. "We are alive," Raheem said, holding his daughter. "We are alive." We drove through the night, eventually stopping at a safe house Marcus had arranged near the Tennessee border. As dawn broke over the mountains, I watched Raheem and Layla sitting together, speaking softly in Pashto. She was traumatized but safe. He was exhausted but complete. "What happens now?" I asked him. "Now I get her somewhere safe, somewhere they cannot find her," Raheem said. "I have friends in Canada who will help. And you, Captain, what happens to you?" I looked out at the mountains, thinking about the line I'd crossed, the laws I'd broken, the violence I'd returned to. I go home. I go back to building things instead of breaking them, and I try to live with what I've done. "You have saved a life," Raheem said quietly. "You have given a father his daughter back. In any language, in any faith, that is a good thing." He stood and extended his hand. I took it, and for a moment former enemies stood as brothers, bound by something greater than war. "The Americans have a saying," Rahim said, "the enemy of my enemy is my friend." But I think today we learned something better. Sometimes the enemy himself can become a friend when we remember our shared humanity. 3 days later, I was back in Asheville, back to building a deck for a retired teacher. My hands were steady on the tools, but my mind kept returning to that night. I'd helped traffic a person across state lines, engaged in armed assault and violated probably a dozen laws, but I'd also saved a life. Marcus called with updates. The trafficking network was being rolled up by the FBI, with anonymous tips leading them to the evidence they needed. Layla and Rahim had made it to Canada safely. She would finish school there, maybe go to college, have the life her mother had dreamed for her. As I drove home that evening, the mountains bathed in the golden light of sunset, I thought about war and peace, about enemies and allies, about the choices that define us. I'd thought the war was over when I left the service, but Rahim's knock on my door had taught me something. Some battles are worth fighting even when they're not your orders to follow. Some enemies become allies. Some walls between people can be broken down by a father's love for his daughter. The mountains were beautiful in the fading light, and for the first time in a long time I felt at peace with who I was and what I'd done. The war might never truly be over, but I'd learned that warriors don't always fight against each other. Sometimes they fight together for something greater than themselves. I thought about Layla, probably settling into a new school in Canada right now, learning to feel safe again. I thought about Rahim, finally able to sleep knowing his daughter was protected, and I thought about myself, a carpenter in the mountains, carrying secrets that would never be told, but knowing that when the moment came, when someone needed help, I'd been ready. That was enough. That would always be enough.